Aptine and Jake Morrison stared at the screen in disbelief. The signal coming from the Sol system made no sense. For 4,000 years, that area of space had been empty, dead, silent. Everyone knew the story. Humanity had destroyed itself in some great war, leaving nothing but ruins and ghost planets. But now, clear as day, radio waves pulsed from Earth's direction. Not random noise. Not natural phenomena. This was organized communication. Someone was trying to talk. Run the scan again, Jake told his communications officer, Tony Blake. Tony's fingers danced over the controls. Same result, Captain. The signal is definitely coming from Earth. It's using old human language patterns, but the technology behind it is unlike anything in our databases. Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her research station. As a ship's xenoarchaeologist, she had studied human ruins for years. This changes everything we know about human history. According to all records, Earth went silent during the Great Darkness period. No survivors. No refugees. Nothing. Jake rubbed his chin. The Starbound was an exploration vessel designed to study dead civilizations and map empty space. They were not prepared for first contact with supposedly extinct species. But orders were orders, and the Galactic Coalition wanted answers. Set course for the Sol system, Jake commanded, and send a message back to Coalition headquarters. Tell them we're investigating. The journey to Earth took 3 weeks. During that time, the signals grew stronger. Tony worked day and night, trying to decode the messages. What he found made everyone nervous. Captain, these aren't distress calls or random chatter. This is military communication, patrol reports, fleet movements, supply requests. Someone is running a very organized operation in human space. Lisa spent her time reviewing every piece of human history she could find. The records show that humans were always good at war, but they were also explorers and builders. Maybe some of them survived and went into hiding. As they approached the outer edge of the Sol system, Jake ordered the ship to go slow and careful. What they saw through the telescopes shocked them all. Earth was not dead. The planet glowed with city lights. Massive space stations orbited around it. Ships moved between the planets like busy insects. The entire system buzzed with activity. How is this possible? Lisa whispered. Where did all this come from? Before anyone could answer, the Starbound sensors screamed a warning. 3 ships appeared out of nowhere, surrounding them. These were not the crude vessels shown in old human museums. They were sleek, powerful, and clearly advanced beyond anything the current galaxy possessed. Tony's radio crackled to life. A voice spoke in clear, ancient English, a language that had been dead for millennia. Unknown vessel. This is Commander Rick Hayes of the Human Defense Fleet. You are entering restricted space. State your business. Jake's hand shook slightly as he picked up the microphone. He had studied some ancient human languages, but his pronunciation was rough. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Coalition ship Starbound. We detected your signals and came to investigate. We thought your species was extinct. Silence filled the radio for long moments. Then the human voice returned, speaking in the common galactic language. The common galactic language. Extinct? Interesting. Captain Morrison, you and your crew are invited aboard our flagship for discussions. Do not be alarmed by our escort. More ships appeared around them. Dozens of sleek fighters that moved with impossible grace. Jake had never seen anything like them. They seemed to dance through space, defying the laws of physics he understood. The flagship was enormous. The Starbound looked like a child's toy next to it. As they docked, Jake noticed that everything was perfectly clean and organized. These people had not been struggling to survive. They had been thriving. A woman in a crisp uniform met them at the airlock. She was tall, confident, and carried herself like someone who had never lost a battle. I am Admiral Kate Sullivan, she said. Welcome aboard the New Frontier. I apologize for the dramatic greeting, but we don't get many visitors. Jake introduced his team. Kate led them through corridors that hummed with advanced technology. Holographic displays showed star charts of the entire galaxy. Crew members moved with military precision. Everything spoke of a civilization that was far from dead. In the conference room, Kate offered them seats and refreshments. The food was simple but well prepared. As they ate, she studied them with intelligent eyes. "You say you thought we were extinct?" Kate said finally. "What do your records tell you about humanity's disappearance?" Lisa pulled out her datapad. According to Coalition archives, humanity vanished during the Great Darkness, about 4,000 years ago. There was mention of civil wars, resource depletion, and social collapse. All communication from human space stopped suddenly. When scout ships finally reached your world centuries later, they found ruins and empty cities. Kate nodded slowly. "Your records are not entirely wrong. Humanity did face a great crisis 4,000 years ago, but we did not destroy ourselves. We made a choice." Tony leaned forward. "What kind of choice?" "We chose to disappear," Kate said simply. "We erased our traces, abandoned our colonies, and retreated to hidden places. The galaxy thought we were gone because we wanted them to think that." Jake felt his head spinning. "But why? Why would an entire species choose to vanish?" Kate's expression grew serious. "Because we discovered something terrible. Something that threatened not just humanity, but every living thing in the galaxy. We realized that the only way to protect everyone was to go into hiding and prepare." "Prepare for what?" Lisa asked. Before Kate could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridors. A crew member burst into the conference room. "Admiral, long-range sensors are picking up movement at the galaxy's edge. The deep space monitoring stations report unknown contact approaching at impossible speeds." Kate stood up, her face grim. "How many?" "Initial count shows at least 50,000 vessels, Admiral. They're big. Bigger than anything in our databases." Kate turned to Jake and his crew. "Captain Morrison, you asked what we were preparing for. You're about to find out. The enemy we've been waiting for has finally arrived. And now the galaxy will learn why humanity disappeared, and why we spent 4,000 years getting ready for war." The conference room fell silent except for the distant sound of battle stations being called throughout the massive ship. Jake realized that everything he thought he knew about the galaxy was about to change forever. Admiral Kate Sullivan led Jake Morrison and his crew to the New Frontier's main briefing room. The walls displayed holographic images of star systems and fleet movements. Dozens of human officers worked at stations, their faces serious and focused. "For 1,000 years ago," Kate began, "humanity's deep space exploration teams found something disturbing at the edge of our galaxy. Dr. Sam Rodriguez can explain it better than I can." An older man with gray hair stepped forward. His eyes held the weight of terrible knowledge. "We discovered evidence of multiple galaxies that had simply vanished," Sam said. "Not destroyed by war or natural disaster. Consumed, eaten. Something was moving through the universe, taking everything and leaving empty space behind." Lisa Carter felt cold fear creep up her spine. "What kind of something?" Sam activated a holographic display. It showed a vast cloud of dark ships moving between star systems. "We call them the Devourers. They're not from our galaxy. They come from the dark spaces between galaxies, traveling for millions of years, consuming everything they find. Planets, stars, entire civilizations, all turned into raw materials for their fleet." Tony Blake stared at the display. "How do you know all this?" "Because we found the remains of their previous victims," Sam replied. "Dead galaxies stripped of all matter. We analyzed the destruction patterns and realized they were heading toward us. The question was not if they would arrive, but when." Kate took over the explanation. "Humanity's government faced an impossible choice. We could warn the other species in the galaxy, but our analysis showed that the current galactic civilization was not capable of fighting this threat. The coalition species were too busy fighting each other over trade routes and territory disputes." Jake felt defensive. "The coalition has maintained peace for thousands of years." "Peace, yes," Kate agreed, "but not strength. Your militaries are designed for policing pirates and settling border disputes. You've never faced an existential threat that required total war preparation." Commander Rick Hayes entered the room carrying a datapad. He was the same officer who had first contacted them in space. "Admiral, the demonstration is ready," he reported. Kate nodded. "Captain Morrison, Would you like to see what humanity has accomplished during our isolation? They moved to the ship's observation deck. Through the massive windows, Jake could see several coalition vessels that had arrived as backup for the Starbound. 3 destroyers and a heavy cruiser, representing the best military technology the galaxy possessed. "Commander Hayes, please disable their weapon systems," Kate ordered. Rick's fingers moved over a small control panel. Instantly, the coalition ships went dark. Their engines shut down, their shields collapsed, and their weapon systems powered off completely. "What did you do?" Jake demanded, reaching for his communicator. "Relax, Captain," Kate said calmly. "Your ships are not damaged. We simply demonstrated that our electronic warfare capabilities can neutralize your entire fleet without firing a shot. Commander Hayes, please restore their systems." The coalition ships came back to life. Jake's communicator immediately began buzzing with confused and angry calls from the other captains. "This is impossible," Jake said. "Our systems have multiple layers of protection against cyber attacks." "Against attacks from technologies similar to your own, yes," Sam explained. "But humanity has spent 4,000 years developing weapons and defenses that the current galaxy has never seen. We've had to imagine fighting an enemy that adapts to everything. So we created technologies that work in completely different ways." Kate gestured toward another display showing human ship construction facilities. Massive orbital factories surrounded several star systems, producing vessels at an incredible rate. "Every human world became a fortress," Kate continued. "Every citizen became a soldier. Every resource was devoted to preparing for the day the Devourers would arrive. We couldn't risk the galaxy's other species discovering our preparations." "Why not?" Lisa asked. "Surely working together would have been better." Kate's expression grew sad. "Because we tried that first. Before we went into hiding, humanity attempted to warn the Coalition. The response was disappointing." Sam pulled up historical records. "The galactic government accused us of creating a false threat to gain military advantage. Several species suggested that humanity was planning to conquer the galaxy and was manufacturing an excuse for military buildup. Others simply didn't believe that anything could threaten the entire galaxy. So you gave up on us," Jake said quietly. "No," Kate replied firmly. "We gave up on convincing you through words. Instead, we decided to protect you through actions. Humanity spent 4,000 years becoming the shield the galaxy never knew it needed." Rick brought up new sensor readings. "Admiral, the long-range arrays are getting clearer images of the approaching fleet. Initial analysis confirms our worst fears. The display showed what looked like a moving cloud of destruction. Thousands of massive ships, each one larger than a Coalition space station, approached from the dark between galaxies. The Devourers have found us," Kate announced to the room. "After 4 millennia of preparation, the test has finally come." Jake stared at the approaching threat. "How long do we have?" "Their current speed suggests they'll reach the Outer Rim colonies in approximately 6 months," Sam calculated. "Once they begin consuming planets, they'll move faster as their fleet grows." "What about the Coalition?" Tony asked. "Will you warn them now?" Kate smiled grimly. "Warning them is no longer enough. We need to unite every species in the galaxy under a single military command, and we need to do it quickly." "You want to take over the galaxy?" Jake realized. "We want to save it," Kate corrected. "There's a difference. Humanity has the technology, the experience, and the preparation needed to fight this war. But we cannot do it alone. We need the Coalition's numbers, their industrial capacity, and their knowledge of current galactic politics." Rick activated the ship's communication systems. "Admiral, shall I open channels to all Coalition worlds?" Kate nodded. "Send the standard first contact package. Full documentation of the Devourer threat. Complete technical specifications of our capabilities, and a formal request for military alliance. Include the sensor data from the approaching fleet." As the messages went out across the galaxy, Kate turned back to Jake and his crew. "Captain Morrison, your ship was the first to answer our signals. That makes you humanity's first official contact with the outside galaxy in 4,000 years. Will you help us convince your people that this threat is real?" Jake looked at his crew. Tony was still staring at the display showing thousands of enemy ships. Lisa was frantically taking notes on everything they had learned. Both looked scared but determined. "What exactly are you asking us to do?" Jake replied. "Return to Coalition space," Kate said. "Tell them everything you've seen here. Explain that humanity is not seeking conquest or revenge for being ignored. We're offering our protection and our technology in exchange for unity against a common enemy." "And if they refuse?" Lisa asked. Kate's expression became hard as steel. "Then humanity will fight this war alone, as we always planned. But the galaxy will fall, and billions of innocent people will die. We hope it doesn't come to that." The room fell silent as the weight of the situation settled on everyone. Jake realized that he was witnessing the return of humanity to galactic affairs, not as conquerors or refugees, but as the guardians they had always chosen to be, even when no one else understood the need for guardianship. Lieutenant Amy Foster watched her screens with growing concern. The sensors aboard humanity's deep space monitoring station showed the enemy fleet more clearly now. What she saw made her stomach turn. "Dr. Wells, you need to see this," she called to the station's head researcher. Dr. Nina Wells hurried over to Amy's station. Nina had been studying Devourer technology for 20 years, working with fragments and debris found at the edges of dead galaxies. But she had never seen a full fleet in action. "They're not just moving toward us," Amy explained, pointing at the display. "They're feeding as they come. Look at this." The screen showed a star system at the galaxy's edge. 3 planets orbited a yellow sun, similar to Earth's own solar system. As they watched, the Devourer fleet descended on the planets like hungry insects. Massive ships landed on the surface and began tearing apart mountains. Other vessels positioned themselves around the planets and fired beams that seemed to pull matter directly into space. Within hours, the planets began to shrink. "They're stripping the worlds down to nothing," Nina whispered. "All that material is being converted into new ships and weapons." Amy switched to another sensor array. "It gets worse. They're doing the same thing to the star itself. Some kind of energy collection system is actually draining the sun." The implications were terrifying. The Devourers didn't just destroy civilizations. They consumed entire star systems, growing stronger with each victory. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Captain Ben Cooper was having the most frustrating diplomatic mission of his career. He sat in the Grand Council chamber of the Zilani Empire, trying to convince Chancellor Vex that the threat was real. "You claim that humanity has been preparing for this war for 4,000 years, Chancellor Vex said, his blue scales shimmering with skepticism. "Yet you also claim that this enemy has been traveling toward us for the same period. Why should we believe such convenient timing?" Ben kept his voice calm and professional. "Because the Devourers don't move randomly, Chancellor. Our deep space reconnaissance found evidence that they scout their targets for centuries before attacking. They've been studying our galaxy, learning our strengths and weaknesses." The Zilani military commander, General Korth, leaned forward aggressively. "Even if this threat exists, why should we trust humans? Your species abandoned us 4,000 years ago. Now you return, claiming to be our saviors. How do we know you're not the real threat?" Before Ben could respond, his communicator buzzed with an emergency signal. He glanced at the message and felt his blood run cold. "Gentlemen," he said quietly, "the debate just became academic. The Devourers have reached the Outer Rim colonies. 3 Zilani mining worlds have gone silent in the last hour." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several council members accused Ben of staging the attack to support his story. Others demanded immediate military response. Chancellor Vex raised his hand for silence. "Captain Cooper, if this is some kind of human trick." "Check your own sensors," Ben interrupted. "Send scouts to the Kepler mining system. See what you find." On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Kevin Adams was having his own problems with the proud Thorani warrior clans. The Thorani were known throughout the galaxy as fierce fighters who lived for battle and honor. Their leader, War Chief Bladesinger, listened to Kevin's warning with obvious disgust. "You speak of running and hiding," Bladesinger growled. "Of tactics and preparation. Where's the honor in fighting from the shadows? A true warrior faces his enemies in open combat." Kevin tried to explain. "War Chief, these enemies adapt to everything they face. If you fight them the same way you've always fought, they'll learn your tactics and use them against you. Humanity has spent thousands of years developing new ways to fight because old ways don't work. Cowards talk, Bladesinger spat. The Thorani have never lost a war. We will not start now. Kevin's patience finally snapped. The Thorani have never fought an enemy that eats planets. This isn't about honor or tradition. This is about survival. The War Council fell silent at Kevin's outburst. Speaking so directly to a war chief was considered deeply insulting. Several Thorani warriors reached for their weapons. But before anyone could act, alarms began blaring throughout the Thorani capital ship. A communications officer ran into the chamber, his face pale with fear. War Chief. The officer gasped. The outer settlements are reporting massive ships approaching. Unknown design. They're pulling our orbital stations apart. Back at the human monitoring post, Amy Foster was tracking the Devourer advance across multiple fronts. The enemy wasn't moving in a straight line toward the galaxy's center. Instead, they were spreading out, attacking multiple star systems simultaneously. Dr. Wells, look at this pattern, Amy said, highlighting the attack routes on her display. They're not just consuming resources. They're cutting off communication lines between the major powers. Nina studied the pattern. They're isolating each species, so they can't coordinate a defense. The Zilani can't call the Thorani for help because the Devourers are jamming the communication relays between their territories. It's worse than that, Amy realized. Look at which systems they're hitting first. Mining worlds, industrial centers, shipyards. They're destroying the Coalition's ability to build new fleets. Nina activated the emergency communication system. I need to report this to Admiral Sullivan immediately. The Devourers aren't just attacking randomly. They have a strategy. Within hours, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Korthak Federation's trade routes were being systematically destroyed. The ethereal psychic networks were being disrupted by some kind of mental interference. The Aquatic Confederation's underwater cities were being drained along with their ocean worlds. Each species reacted differently to the crisis. The militaristic Thorani threw their fleets into direct combat and watched them disappear in minutes. The merchant Korthaks tried to negotiate with the Devourers and received no response. The intellectual ethereals attempted to communicate psychically and had their minds burned by alien thoughts. Captain Ben Cooper found himself at the center of a growing panic as coalition government leaders realized that their individual military forces were completely inadequate against the threat. We need the human technology, Chancellor Vex admitted during an emergency council session. Our weapons cannot penetrate their shields. Our ships cannot match their speed. Our tactics are useless against enemies that learn from every battle. Pride will not save our people, agreed War Chief Bladesinger, his voice heavy with the weight of recent defeats. The Thorani have lost 17 fleets in 3 days. We must swallow our honor and accept human help. But even as the coalition leaders began to accept reality, the Devourer fleet continued to grow. Each consumed world added new ships to their armada. Each destroyed star system provided energy for bigger weapons. Dr. Nina Wells completed her analysis of the enemy's capabilities and sent a report to the human leadership. Her conclusions were grim. The Devourers had already consumed enough material to double their fleet size. At their current rate of expansion, they would be unstoppable within months. We're not just fighting an invasion, Nina wrote in her report. We're fighting an exponentially growing cancer that gets stronger every day we delay. If the galaxy doesn't unite immediately, there won't be a galaxy left to save. The message reached Admiral Kate Sullivan as she prepared humanity's war fleets for the battles ahead. She read Nina's report and made a decision that would determine the fate of billions of lives. Send word to all human commanders, Kate ordered. We're abandoning the gradual approach. If the coalition won't unite willingly, we'll give them a demonstration of what unity looks like. Prepare for Operation Revelation. Across human space, hidden fleets began to move. The time for gentle diplomacy was over. Humanity was about to show the galaxy what 4,000 years of preparation looked like. The emergency session of the Galactic Coalition took place on the neutral station Harmony Point. Representatives from every major species gathered in a massive chamber, their voices raised in panic and argument. The Devourer attacks had reached deeper into Coalition space, and entire star systems were disappearing daily. Admiral Kate Sullivan entered the chamber flanked by her senior officers. The room fell silent as she walked to the central podium. Her uniform was spotless, her bearing confident, but her eyes held the weight of terrible knowledge. "Honorable delegates," Kate began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. "3 days ago, you witnessed the destruction of the Zilani Outer Rim. Yesterday, the Thorani lost their primary shipbuilding facility. This morning, the Korthak trade hub at Beta Centauri went silent. The enemy you refuse to believe in is now consuming your worlds." Chancellor Vex of the Zilani Empire stood up, his blue scales pale with stress. "Admiral Sullivan, our combined fleets have thrown everything we have at these devourers. Our weapons barely scratch their hulls. Our ships are destroyed in seconds. We need your help." Kate nodded gravely. "You shall have it. But first, you need to understand exactly what humanity has been preparing for the last 4,000 years. She gestured to Colonel Matt Stone, who stepped forward carrying a small device. "Colonel Stone commands our newest fighter squadron. Colonel, would you demonstrate the phase technology?" Matt activated the device. Instantly, he began to flicker in and out of existence, his body becoming translucent one moment and solid the next. "Our ships can phase between dimensions," Kate explained as gasps echoed through the chamber. "When phased out, they cannot be detected or damaged by conventional weapons. When phased in, they can attack with full force. This is just one of the technologies we've developed." War Chief Bladesinger of the Thorani leaned forward. "How many ships do you have with this technology?" Kate smiled coldly. "All of them." Engineer Grace Parker stepped up to another control panel. The chamber's main display lit up with images of massive industrial complexes hidden throughout human space. "These are our fortress worlds," Grace announced. "Each one can produce a full battle fleet in 72 hours. We have 43 such worlds, all hidden in pocket dimensions until now." Trade Master Zorth of the Korthak Federation stammered. 43? That's impossible. Our surveys show no habitable worlds in human space." "Your surveys show what we wanted you to see," Kate replied. "Grace, show them Sanctuary 7. The display shifted to show a planet that seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially in some other dimension. Massive shipyards floated in dimensional bubbles around the world, protected from detection by layers of reality-bending technology. Dr. Sam Rodriguez took over the presentation. "We call it dimensional engineering. By folding space-time, we can hide entire star systems and pocket universes that exist parallel to normal space. The Devourers consume matter from our dimension, so we moved our most important assets to others." The Coalition delegates sat in stunned silence as the true scope of humanity's preparations became clear. Hidden worlds, impossible technologies, and military capabilities that defied everything they thought they knew about science. "But the most important thing we've developed," Kate continued, "is not technology. It's doctrine. Captain Kevin Adams has been studying Devourer tactics from our long-range observations." "Captain Adams." Kevin stepped forward, looking grim. "The Devourers adapt to everything they encounter. Face them with energy weapons. They develop energy-resistant shields. Use kinetic weapons. They create armor that absorbs impact. Fight them in formation. They learn your patterns and counter them." "Then how do we fight them?" Chancellor Vex asked. "By never fighting them the same way twice," Kevin replied. "Human military doctrine is based on constant change. Our ships reconfigure themselves between battles. Our weapon systems randomly alter their output patterns. Our tactics shift every few minutes during combat." Admiral Kate Sullivan activated another display showing detailed analysis of the Devourer fleet structure. "We've been watching them for 4,000 years, she said. "We know their weaknesses. They're incredibly powerful, but they rely on their ability to adapt. If you hit them with something they've never seen before, you have a window of opportunity before they adjust." Commander Rick Hayes spoke up. "That's why we need the Coalition species. Human innovation combined with Zilani industrial capacity, Thorani warrior spirit, Korthak trade networks, and ethereal psychic abilities gives us options the Devourers have never encountered. You're asking us to completely change how we fight," War Chief Bladesinger observed. "We're asking you to survive," Kate replied bluntly. The old ways of warfare are useless against this enemy. Glorious last stands and heroic charges will only feed them more resources. This war will be won through flexibility, innovation, and the willingness to sacrifice pride for victory. Grace Parker brought up new images showing human training facilities. We're prepared to share all our technology with coalition forces, but your people need to learn how to use it. That means abandoning traditional combat roles and learning to fight as integrated teams. The ethereal representative, Mindspeaker Zalen, projected thoughts directly into everyone's minds. The humans speak truth. My people attempted to use our psychic abilities against the Devourers. We discovered that their minds are structured unlike anything we've encountered. Traditional mental attacks are useless. But, Kate added, human psychic dampening technology can shield ethereal minds from Devourer mental interference. Working together, your people can provide reconnaissance and communication advantages that we desperately need. Trade Master Zorth raised a tentacle. What about our merchant fleets? The Korthak Confederation has thousands of trade vessels, but they're not built for combat. Every ship can be a weapon if used correctly, Colonel Matt Stone answered. We'll teach your traders to use dimensional phase drives to deliver surprise attacks. A merchant vessel that can appear inside an enemy formation is more valuable than a traditional warship that fights predictably. The chamber buzzed with nervous conversation as the implications sank in. The Coalition's entire way of life would have to change to fight this war. Chancellor Vex stood again. Admiral Sullivan, you're asking us to place our entire military under human command. How do we know you won't use this crisis to conquer us? Kate's expression softened slightly. Because, Chancellor, we've had the ability to conquer the galaxy for 2,000 years. If that was our goal, we wouldn't have waited for the Devourers to arrive. She gestured to the images of hidden fortress worlds and dimensional fleets. Every technology we've developed, every weapon we've built, every tactic we perfected has been designed for one purpose: stopping the Devourers. We could have revealed ourselves at any time and dominated galactic politics. Instead, we chose to remain hidden and prepare for this war. Dr. Sam Rodriguez added, the Devourers had consumed 17 galaxies before ours. We've studied the remains of civilizations that face this enemy. The ones that survived were those that abandoned individual pride and fought as a unified force. Kate walked to the center of the chamber, looking each delegate in the eye. I'm not asking you to surrender your independence or your cultures. I'm asking you to pool your strengths with ours so that your cultures have a future. Alone, each of our species will fall. United, we have a chance. The vote was close, but it passed. The Coalition species agreed to place their military forces under unified human command in exchange for access to humanity's advanced technology and tactical knowledge. As the delegates filed out to inform their governments, Kate stood alone in the chamber with her senior officers. Think it will work? Rick asked. Kate looked at the display showing the approaching Devourer fleet, now twice the size it had been when first detected. It has to work, she replied, because if it doesn't, this galaxy joins the 17 others that try to fight this war without unity. And I refuse to let that happen. The greatest military mobilization in galactic history was about to begin. Humanity's 4,000-year preparation was finally going to be put to the ultimate test. Commander Lisa Brooks stood in the training center on New Geneva, watching Zilani pilots struggle with human fighter controls. The blue-scaled aliens were excellent flyers, but they kept trying to use their traditional formation tactics instead of the fluid, adaptive style that human combat required. Squadron Leader Kess, Lisa called to the lead Zilani pilot. You're thinking like prey. The Devourers expect you to fly in neat formations that they can predict and counter. Break apart, attack from random angles, never give them a pattern to follow. Squadron Leader Kess's scales flashed with frustration. Commander Brooks, these tactics go against everything we've learned about squadron coordination. How can we support each other if we don't maintain formation? Lisa sighed. This was the same conversation she'd had with every coalition species over the past month. Their military traditions were deeply rooted, and asking them to abandon everything they knew about warfare was like asking them to forget how to breathe. Watch this, Lisa said, activating the training simulation. Human fighter pilots appeared on the screens, facing a mock Devourer squadron. Instead of flying in neat lines, the human ships move like a swarm of angry insects, appearing and disappearing unpredictably, striking from impossible angles before vanishing again. Each pilot supports the others not through formation discipline, but through chaos. Lisa explained. When you're unpredictable, the enemy can't target your wingman, because they don't know where your wingman will be. When you attack from random directions, they can't concentrate their defenses. Across the galaxy, similar training was taking place on dozens of worlds. Dr. Alan Price worked frantically in his laboratory, trying to adapt human technology for alien physiology. The problem was that each species required different modifications. The Thorani warriors are too aggressive, Alan muttered to his assistant as he adjusted another set of dimensional phase controls. They keep trying to charge directly at the enemy instead of using hit-and-run tactics. But their natural strength makes them perfect for boarding actions if we can just get them close enough. His assistant, a young human engineer named Beth Clark, looked up from her workbench where she was modifying ethereal psychic amplifiers. What about the ethereals? How do we make their mental abilities work with our technology? Alan smiled for the first time in weeks. That's actually going well. When we combine their psychic scanning with our dimensional sensors, they can detect Devourer ships even when they're hiding in subspace. The problem is protecting their minds from feedback when they make contact with Devourer consciousness. Meanwhile, Captain Kevin Adams was leading joint training exercises in the asteroid fields near Titan. His mixed squadron included human, Thorani, Korthak, and aquatic Confederation pilots, and the communication problems were enormous. Blue, leader, this is Strike Command. Kevin called over the radio. Begin attack pattern, damn it. Which species uses blue call signs? His communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Peters, checked her translation matrix. Sir, the aquatic pilots use color-based designations, but the Thorani use warrior names and the Korthaks use trade route numbers. Kevin rubbed his temples. Right. Depth Hunter 7 Blade Striker Squadron and Prophet Line 12 begin random assault pattern on the target asteroids. The attack that followed was chaos. The Thorani pilots charged straight at their targets, screaming battle cries that made the radio crackle. The Korthak traders moved cautiously, trying to calculate the most efficient attack routes. The aquatic pilots flowed through space like they were swimming through ocean currents. But slowly, they began to adapt. The Thorani learned that a screaming charge was more effective when it came from an unexpected direction. The Korthak traders discovered that their careful calculations could predict where enemies would dodge, making their shots more accurate. The aquatic pilots found that their fluid movement patterns were perfect for confusing targeting systems. It's working, Kevin reported to Admiral Kate Sullivan during their daily briefing. They're starting to think like a unified force instead of separate species fighting alongside each other. Kate nodded, but her expression remained grim. How long before they're ready for real combat? At least 3 more months for basic proficiency, Kevin replied. 6 months for advanced tactics. We don't have 6 months, Kate said, pointing to the tactical display. The Devourers have consumed 12 more star systems this week. They're growing faster than we can train our forces. On the industrial world of New Pittsburgh, Grace Parker was overseeing the largest construction project in galactic history. Human dimensional engineering was being combined with coalition industrial capacity to produce hybrid warships that could phase between realities while carrying weapons from multiple species. The Zolani crystal matrix cannons are perfect for our dimensional fighters, Grace explained to her mixed-species engineering team. When the ship phases in, the crystals focus all their stored energy into a single devastating blast. Then the ship phases out before a turn fire can hit it. A Korthak engineer raised a tentacle. Engineer Parker, our people are concerned about the safety of dimensional travel. What happens if a ship gets stuck between realities? Grace's expression became serious. That's why we have strict protocols. No one phases alone. Everyone has backup dimensional anchors, and every ship carries emergency reality stabilizers. But yes, there are risks. This technology pushes the boundaries of what's physically possible. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Mindspeaker Zalen of the Ethereals made contact with Grace during a particularly difficult engineering session. Human Grace. Zalen's thought projected directly into Grace's mind. My people have been observing your dimensional technology. We believe we can enhance it using psychic stabilization fields. Grace looked up from her workbench. You mean your people can help keep ships stable while they're phased? More than that, Zalen replied. We can create psychic navigation networks that allow phased ships to find each other across dimensional boundaries. Your isolated fighters who coordinate attacks through mental links that the Devourers cannot intercept or jam. This development changed everything. Within weeks, joint human ethereal crews were testing fighters that could disappear into alternate dimensions, coordinate attacks through psychic networks, and reappear simultaneously from multiple directions. But the real test came when the Devourers attacked the outer rim world of Haven Colony. Captain Danny Clark led the first mixed-species squadron into combat against the enemy. His flight included human pilots and phase-capable fighters, Thorony warriors in heavily armored assault ships, and ethereal psychics providing mental coordination. All units. This is Strike Leader Clark. Danny called over the radio as they approached the battle zone. Remember, we hit hard, we hit fast, and we don't stay to trade shots. The Devourers learn quickly, so every attack has to be different from the last one. The battle was unlike anything any of them had experienced. The Devourer ships move with mechanical precision, their dark hulls absorbing energy weapons and deflecting kinetic rounds. But when the Coalition forces attacked using combined human-alien tactics, cracks appeared in the enemy's defenses. Human fighters phased in and out of reality, striking from impossible angles. Thorony warriors screamed their battle cries as they rammed damaged Devourer ships, boarding them and fighting hand-to-hand in the corridors. Ethereal psychics guided weapons through dimensional barriers, hitting targets that sensors couldn't detect. It's working, Danny reported as another Devourer ship exploded. They're adapting to our individual tactics, but they can't adapt to all of us at once. But victory came at a price. The Devourers learned from the battle, and their next attacks showed improvements in their anti-dimensional defenses and psychic shielding. Back on Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan reviewed the battle reports with her senior staff. We won, she said, but barely, and they're already adapting to our new tactics. We need to keep innovating faster than they can learn. Dr. Sam Rodriguez looked worried. Kate, we're pushing our people and our alien allies to their limits. The training is producing results, but the stress is enormous. We're asking entire civilizations to change their fundamental nature in a matter of months. I know, Kate replied quietly, but look at what they've accomplished. Zalani pilots who used to fly in rigid formations are now improvising like jazz musicians. Thorony warriors who used to charge blindly are learning patience and timing. Korthak traders who avoided all risks are volunteering for suicide missions. And ethereals are developing new psychic abilities they never knew they possessed, added Commander Rick Hayes. The war is changing all of us. Kate stood at the window of her command center, looking out at the stars. Somewhere in the darkness, the Devourer fleet continued its advance, growing larger and more dangerous with each consumed world. The question is, she said softly, are we changing fast enough? Because if we're not, everything we've worked for, everything our species have built, will be consumed and forgotten like the 17 galaxies that came before us. The greatest test of unity in galactic history was just beginning, and nobody knew if they would be strong enough to pass it. The Kepler Nebula had always been a peaceful region of space. Its colorful gas clouds and gentle radiation made it popular with tourists and scientists. Now it would become the site of the largest space battle in galactic history. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of a new frontier, watching the massive combined fleet take position. Human ships phase in and out of dimensional space, their hulls shimmering with strange energy. Zalani Crystal Matrix destroyers floated alongside Thorony battle rams. Korthak trade vessels, heavily modified with human weapons, moved in formation with sleek ethereal mine ships. Fleet status report, Kate ordered. Commander Rick Hayes checked his displays. 2,000, 400 vessels ready for battle, Admiral. Human dimensional fighters, Coalition heavy ships, and support craft from all member species. The ethereal psychic network is operational. Kate nodded. The enemy was coming. Long-range sensors showed a Devourer invasion force of unprecedented size approaching the nebula. This fleet was different from the scouting groups that had attacked outer rim worlds. This was a full assault force, complete with massive motherships that could consume entire planets. "Signal all ships," Kate ordered. "Remember, this enemy adapts to everything. No formation stays the same for more than 5 minutes. No weapon fires the same pattern twice. Stay unpredictable, stay alive." Captain Danny Clark sat in his fighter cockpit, surrounded by the mixed squadron he had trained with for months. The pilot beside him was Squadron Leader Kessa Zalani, her blue scales visible through her transparent helmet. Behind them flew warrior pilot Deathworlder Thorani, his massive frame barely fitting into his modified cockpit. "All fighters, this is Strike Leader Clark." Danny called over the radio. "The psychic network is active. Let the ethereals guide your instincts, but trust your training. We've practiced this 1,000 times." Mindspeaker Zalen's thoughts touched every pilot's consciousness. Through the psychic link, Danny could sense the positions of every friendly ship, even those phased into alternate dimensions. It was like having perfect battlefield awareness. The Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace like a plague of dark insects. Hundreds of ships, each one larger than a coalition space station, moved with mechanical precision toward the nebula. At the center of the formation, a massive mothership dwarfed everything around it. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Sarah Peters from her communication station. "How are we supposed to fight something that big?" Grace Parker, serving as the fleet's chief engineer, studied the readings from her position aboard a mobile command ship. The mothership is using the smaller vessels as a power source. If we can disrupt the energy flow, the whole formation becomes vulnerable. Kate Sullivan made the call that would determine the fate of billions. "All units, attack pattern chaos. No predetermined targets, no formation flying. Trust the psychic network and attack whatever your instincts tell you to hit." The battle began with a human innovation that the Devourers had never seen before. Instead of charging directly at the enemy, the combined fleet spread out into what looked like random movement. Ships phased in and out of dimensional space, appeared from impossible angles, and struck with weapons that defied conventional physics. Danny Clark led his squadron in a diving attack on a cluster of Devourer destroyers. His fighter phased into reality just long enough to fire its dimensional torpedoes, then vanished before a turn fire could reach him. Squadron Leader Kess followed the same pattern, but her crystal matrix weapons fired from a completely different dimensional phase, making her shots impossible to predict or block. "It's working!" Thakvor roared over the radio as his heavy assault ship rammed through a Devourer cruiser's shields. They cannot adapt to what they cannot understand, but the Devourers were learning. Each wave of attack showed them adjusting their tactics, strengthening their defenses, and developing counters to the Coalition's new strategies. "Admiral," reported Dr. Sam Rodriguez from the science station, "the enemy is adapting faster than our projections indicated. They're sharing tactical data across their entire fleet in real time." Kate watched the tactical display as Devourer ships began to anticipate dimensional attacks. "Then we need to hit them before they fully adapt. Captain Clark, prepare for Operation Desperate Gambit." Danny Clark knew what that meant. He and a small group of volunteers would phase directly inside the mothership and plant quantum bombs at its power core. It was a suicide mission with almost no chance of survival. "Understood, Admiral," Danny replied calmly. "Volunteer pilots, form on my position." To his surprise, pilots from every species in the Coalition responded. Kess and her Zalani squadron, Thakvor and his Thorani warriors, even the cautious Korthak traders who had learned to value courage over profit. "Strike Leader Clark," came the voice of Mindspeaker Zalen. "My people will maintain the psychic link even inside the enemy ship. You will not fight alone." The volunteer squadron phased out of normal space and materialized inside the vast hangar bay of the Devourer mothership. What they found there defied all expectations. The interior of the ship was not mechanical corridors and computer systems. Instead, it was a living organism. Walls pulsed like breathing flesh. Strange growths connected different sections. The Devourers were not just using their ships. They were part of them. "Stay together," Danny ordered as they flew deeper into the organic maze. The quantum bombs need to be placed at the central nervous system, not a power core. Fighting inside the mothership was like nothing they had trained for. Devourer defenders emerged from the walls themselves, firing weapons that seemed to grow from their bodies. The ship's immune system attacked them with antibody-like creatures that tried to dissolve their fighters. Thakvor's battle ram was the first casualty. The Thorani warrior ship was consumed by some kind of acid that ate through dimensional shielding. But instead of dying quietly, Thakvor activated his ship's self-destruct, blowing a massive hole in the ship's nervous system. For the honor of the Thorani, he screamed as his ship exploded. Squadron leader Kes followed his example, using her crystal matrix weapons to carve a path deeper into the ship's core. But her fighter was caught by defensive tendrils that began pulling it apart. "Tell my people that the Zilani died with courage," she said calmly before triggering her own self-destruct sequence. Danny found himself alone as he reached the central chamber of the mothership. The space was vast, filled with pulsing organs and flowing energy. At the center was what looked like a massive brain, connected to thousands of smaller vessels throughout the fleet. He armed the quantum bomb and prepared to deploy it. But as he moved toward the target, tendrils emerged from every surface, trying to stop him. Mindspeaker Zalen, he called through the psychic link. "If you can hear me, tell the fleet that we found the real target. The mothership is the brain of the entire fleet. Destroy it and the rest should fall." "We hear you, brave human," Zalen's thoughts replied. "Your sacrifice will be remembered by all species." Danny placed the bomb and activated the timer. But instead of trying to escape, he stayed to make sure the device wasn't removed. The explosion that followed tore apart the mothership's central nervous system and sent feedback through the entire Devourer fleet. Outside the dying mothership, the battle changed instantly. Without central coordination, the Devourer ships began moving randomly, firing at each other, and losing the adaptive capabilities that made them so dangerous. "All units, concentrate fire on the disabled vessels," Kate ordered. "They can't adapt without their central brain to coordinate responses." The victory was complete. For the first time in recorded history, a Devourer invasion force had been completely destroyed. The nebula was filled with the wreckage of enemy ships and the cheers of surviving coalition pilots. But the cost had been terrible. Nearly half the fleet was destroyed or damaged. Entire squadrons had been lost, including many of the best pilots from every species. Kate Sullivan stood in the memorial chamber aboard the New Frontier, looking at the names of the dead scrolling past on the walls. Danny Clark, Squadron Leader Kes Thakvor, and hundreds of others who had given their lives for victory. "Admiral," Commander Rick Hayes said quietly, "long-range sensors are detecting another Devourer fleet approaching from Galactic South. This one is 10 times larger than what we just faced." Kate closed her eyes. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. And now the enemy knew exactly what the coalition was capable of. "Send word to all member worlds," she ordered. "Total mobilization. Every ship, every pilot, every weapon we can build. The Devourers will adapt to what we did here, so we need to be ready with something completely different." "What about the victory celebration?" Rick asked. Kate looked at the memorial wall one more time. "There will be time to celebrate when the galaxy is safe. Right now, we have work to do." The first true victory had been won, but it was only the beginning of a war that would determine whether any of them would survive to see tomorrow. The emergency meeting took place on Unity Station, a massive construction built in just 3 weeks using technology from every species in the galaxy. Dr. Rachel Brown stood before the largest gathering of leaders in galactic history, presenting analysis that would change everything. "The data from the Kepler battle shows us the true scale of what we face," Rachel announced at the packed assembly hall. "The fleet we destroyed was not a main invasion force. It was a reconnaissance unit. Intelligence gathered from captured Devourer bio ships indicates that the primary invasion fleet contains over 1 million vessels." Silence filled the chamber as the numbers sank in. Chancellor Vex of the Zilani Empire was the first to speak. "Dr. Brown, our combined fleets barely defeated a force of a few hundred ships. How can we possibly fight 1 million? Rachel activated the holographic display, showing industrial capacity projections. "By doing something that has never been attempted before, we're going to convert every world in the galaxy into a weapons manufacturing center." General Steve Martinez, the human military coordinator, stepped forward. "What Dr. Brown is proposing goes beyond total war. We're talking about transforming our entire civilization into a single military organism. Trade Master Zorth of the Korthak Federation raised a tentacle nervously. General Martinez, the economic implications are staggering. Converting civilian industries to military production will collapse our trade networks. There won't be any trade networks if we lose this war, Steve replied bluntly. The Devourers don't take prisoners or leave survivors. They consume everything. War Chief Bladesinger of the Thorani stood up, his scarred face grim with determination. The Thorani pledge every warrior, every ship, every weapon to this cause. But we need coordination beyond anything our species have ever attempted. Mindspeaker Zalen projected thoughts to the entire assembly. My people offer our psychic networks to link every world, every factory, every military unit into a single communication system. No delays, no miscommunication, instant coordination across the entire galaxy. Over the following weeks, the transformation began. On the industrial world of New Berlin, human dimensional engineering was combined with Zalani crystal matrix technology to create weapons that could exist in multiple realities simultaneously. Thorani forges were expanded using Korthak trade efficiency methods, producing armor and weapons at rates that defied previous limitations. Captain Holly Turner commanded one of the new mixed species crews aboard the hybrid battleship Galactic Unity. Her bridge included officers from every coalition species, working together with precision that would have been impossible months earlier. Navigation, plot a course to the Rigel system, Holly ordered. We need to coordinate the defense network installation with the local Aquatic Confederation forces. Her Korthak navigator, trade pilot Vex 9, quickly calculated the most efficient route. Captain Turner, dimensional phase jump will put us at Rigel in 47 minutes. The aquatic forces are already in position. At the weapons station, Thorani Gunner Croftval reported ship status. All weapon systems operational. Captain. Crystal Matrix dimensional cannons charged and ready. The ethereal targeting network is showing green across all systems. The cooperation that Holly saw on her bridge was being repeated across the galaxy. Former enemies worked side by side, sharing technology and tactics that they had once guarded as national secrets. But the most remarkable changes were happening on individual worlds. Sergeant Paul Evans ran a training camp on New Texas, where soldiers from every species learned to fight as integrated units. Listen up, people. Paul called his mixed species squad. The enemy adapts to everything they face, so you need to be unpredictable. Thorani warrior Gresh, when you charge, don't scream your battle cry until after you hit. Zalani Scoutvel, use your crystal sight to guide ethereal mind-touch Fal's psychic attacks. The training was intense and dangerous. Species that had evolved on different worlds struggled to coordinate their abilities. But slowly, they began to function as unified teams. It's working, Sarge, reported Human Corporal Lisa Park after a successful exercise. When we stop thinking of ourselves as separate species and start thinking like a single unit, we can do things none of US could manage alone. The real test came when the advanced scouts of the main Devourer fleet arrived. These ships were different from anything they had faced before. They seemed to learn and adapt within minutes of encountering new tactics. Captain Brandon Lee piloted humanity's most advanced experimental ship, the Reality Knife, equipped with technology that could manipulate space-time itself. His mission was to test the ship's capabilities against these new Devourer scouts. Dr. Miller, are you ready to activate the Dimensional Cascade weapon? Brandon asked the science officer. Dr. Sophie Miller checked her readings from the science station. All systems show green, Captain. But remember, this technology is completely theoretical. We don't know what will happen when we collapse a section of space-time around an enemy ship. Only one way to find out, Brandon replied grimly. The battle that followed defied everything anyone thought they knew about physics. Brandon's ship seemed to exist in several dimensions at once, attacking from angles that didn't exist in normal space. The Dimensional Cascade weapon created bubbles of collapsed space-time that trapped Devourer ships in temporal loops. It's working, Sophie reported excitedly. The enemy ships are caught in recursive time distortions. They're experiencing the same moment over and over, unable to adapt because they can't move forward in time. But victory came with a terrible cost. Using the dimensional cascade, weapon damaged the fabric of space-time itself. Entire star systems began showing signs of temporal instability. Captain Lee, Dr. Miller said quietly, "We can't use this weapon near inhabited worlds." The dimensional damage could tear apart entire solar systems. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the unified defense network was nearing completion. Hidden weapons platforms appeared from dimensional storage around every major star system. Psychic communication networks linked every military unit into a single responsive organism. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the main command center on Earth, watching status reports flow in from thousands of worlds. The scale of coordination was beyond anything that had ever been attempted. "Admiral," reported Commander Rick Hayes, "all systems report ready. We have 43,000 ships of the line, 200,000 fighters, and defensive installations around every inhabited system in the galaxy." "And the enemy?" Kate asked. "Long-range sensors show the main Devourer fleet has entered our galaxy. Estimated arrival at core worlds, 6 days." Kate nodded. 6 days to prepare for the largest battle in galactic history. Everything they had built, everything they had sacrificed, would be tested in a single massive engagement. "Send a message to all commands," Kate ordered. "Operation Final Unity is now active. Every ship, every weapon, every person in the galaxy is now part of a single military force. We fight as one or we die as separate species." The message went out through the ethereal psychic network, reaching every world simultaneously. On Thorani, warriors sharpen their blades while engineers install human phase drives in their ships. On Zolani Prime, Crystal Matrix weapons were loaded with dimensional ammunition created using Korthak precision manufacturing. In the depths of space, hidden fortress worlds emerged from dimensional hiding, their populations ready to make the ultimate sacrifice to protect the galaxy they had watched over for 4,000 years. The final battle was coming, and for the first time in galactic history, every intelligent species would fight not as separate civilizations, but as a single unified force. The question that remained was whether unity would be enough to defeat an enemy that had consumed hundreds of galaxies across millions of years. Captain Holly Turner looked at her mixed-species crew and felt something she had never experienced before: complete confidence in beings from other worlds. They were no longer human, Zolani, Thorani, or Korthak. They were defenders of the galaxy, and they would not fail. "All stations report ready for final battle," Holly announced to her crew. "Let's show the Devourers what the galaxy looks like when it fights as one." The main Devourer invasion fleet stretched across light years of space. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the command center of Unity Station, watching sensor readings that defied comprehension. Over 1 million enemy vessels moved in perfect formation toward the galaxy's core, led by something that dwarfed even the largest motherships they had faced before. "Analysis report," Kate requested from Dr. Sophie Miller, who had been studying the approaching fleet for days. "Admiral, the central vessel appears to be some kind of ancient intelligence," Sophie replied, her voice shaky with fear and awe. "Our deep scan suggests it's over 10 million years old. It's not just commanding the fleet, it IS the fleet. Every ship is connected to its consciousness." Commander Rick Hayes looked up from the tactical display. "Ma'am, the enemy will reach our outer defense perimeter in 18 hours. All galactic forces report ready, but the numbers are still overwhelming." Kate nodded grimly. Even with total galactic unity, they were outnumbered nearly 100 to 1, but they had advantages the enemy had never faced before. "Activate the Dimensional Defense Network," Kate ordered, "and send word to the hidden worlds. It's time for humanity's final gambit." Throughout the galaxy, the largest military operation in history began. Captain Brandon Lee piloted the reality knife alongside thousands of other dimensional ships, all phasing in and out of normal space in coordination patterns that had never been attempted. "Dr. Miller, how are the space-time modifications holding up?" Brandon asked as his ship prepared for battle. Sophie checked her instruments. "The dimensional cascade weapons are stable, but Captain, using them will create permanent damage to local space-time. We're literally breaking the universe to fight this enemy." "Then we better make sure we win," Brandon replied. The first engagement began in the Outer Rim, where Captain Holly Turner commanded a mixed fleet of 40,000 vessels. Her ship, the Galactic Unity, serve as a coordination node for species-integrated battle groups spread across multiple star systems. All units, remember the new doctrine. Holly called over the psychic communication network that Mindspeaker Zayla maintained. No predictable patterns, no sustained engagements. Hit them with everything we've learned, then adapt before they can counter. The battle was unlike anything in recorded history. Human ships phase through dimensions while Zilani Crystal Matrix weapons fire from alternate realities. Thorani warriors launch boarding attacks that materialize inside enemy ships through psychic teleportation guided by ethereal navigators. Korthak trade vessels, converted into mobile factories, produced new weapons during the battle itself, but the Devourers adapted with terrifying speed. Each wave of attacks became less effective as the enemy intelligence analyzed and countered new tactics within minutes. Admiral Sullivan reported General Steve Martinez from his command ship. "We're losing the outer perimeter. The enemy is learning faster than we can innovate. We need the secret weapon now." Kate had hoped to avoid this moment, but the time for hesitation was past. Activate Operation Last Hope. Signal all hidden worlds to begin dimensional emergence. Across the galaxy, something impossible began to happen. Entire star systems that had been hidden in pocket dimensions for 4,000 years suddenly materialized in normal space. Hundreds of worlds that the galaxy had never known existed appeared around strategic points throughout the battle zone. These were not just military bases. They were entire civilizations that had volunteered to become weapons in the final battle. Planets equipped with dimensional engines that could move through space. Worlds converted into massive cannons that could fire star-killing ammunition. Most incredibly of all, populations that had agreed to sacrifice their worlds by ramming them into the largest enemy vessels. Dr. Rachel Brown coordinated the emergence from her station on New Geneva, one of the hidden fortress worlds. "All emergence points report successful transition to normal space," she announced. "Population evacuation to dimensional shelters is 97% complete." "Evacuation?" asked her assistant, not understanding. Rachel's expression was grim. "The people staying behind have volunteered for the final sacrifice. They're going to pilot these worlds directly into the enemy motherships." The appearance of the hidden worlds changed the entire battle. Suddenly, the Devourers found themselves surrounded by threats they had never detected. Weapons fired from impossible positions, striking enemy formations that had thought themselves secure. Captain Danny Clark, who had survived the Kepler battle against all odds, now commanded a squadron of dimension-shifting fighters that could attack from parallel universes. "Strike Leader Clark to all fighters," he called over the radio. "The hidden worlds are giving us the opening we need. Pour everything into the enemy command ships.